All right, guys, here we go. Myke Macapinlac, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
What's up, man? Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you. So you are from the Philippines originally, and your story was just
Originally.
so well. And we just talked about it a second ago off the air. What made me go, oh my God, I want to talk to this guy, was you eating lunch by yourself when growing up in high school. You know, when you moved to the Philippines, because that was my experience too. And I was like, oh man, I want to hear his point of view and what that was
Sure.
like for him. So tell me a little bit about, let everyone hear your story.
Sure. So the whole thing started when I was 17 years old. So my family and I immigrated to Canada from Saudi Arabia, actually. I was raised in Saudi Arabia. So I moved to Saudi when I was 11, lived there until I was 16. But I was born and raised in a small farm in the Philippines where, we grew up really poor. We lived in a hut, didn't have running water, so to speak. And if you know anything about, both the Philippines and Saudi Arabia, they're both very conservative cultures, right? Especially back in Saudi, where it's actually impolite to have, to make prolonged eye contact, like the culture is just very different. So when I moved to Canada with my Philippines, I found it really challenging to assimilate just because, back then I didn't speak English. Number two, I used to be 60 pounds heavier. So at 5'5", I weighed 200 pounds. And number three, I just suffered from really bad acne. And that made me really insecure, and I grew up in a household where academic success was the most important thing. There wasn't a lot of attention put into, personal development or like making friends, stuff like that. Like the golden ticket to success is good grades, get a good job type of thing, right? So to answer your question, I just didn't know how to manage my thoughts and manage my emotions. So like moving into a new country with all the disadvantages that I had, I just felt overwhelmed and I didn't know how to fit in. So that's why, hence me eating my lunch in isolation.
Right. God, I mean, we even got more similar there. Like not that, I mean, I had, and I'm going to ask, did you have good parents? Like, I had great parents. So did you have loving, supporting parents and all that?
Yeah, they're great. Like I obviously like they come from a different era. They come from a different mindset too. And obviously I couldn't really blame my parents, right? Like growing up in the community and the situation that they were, back then, like we grew up poor. We didn't have a lot of things. So my dad really put a lot of emphasis on education because, ultimately they want us to be successful because they want us to have good lives. Right.
Right. No. So, I come from Holocaust surviving Jews and poor African Americans. And it was the same thing. Get an education, get a job. You'll be, get an education, get a job. So very similar story. Why did your family come here or come to North America? I would say
my dad. Yeah. So my dad, I mean, if you live in, the Philippines or any third world country, it's, it's always a dream, right? To move to North America because, of the perception, like the land of milk and honey, so to speak, like there's just more opportunities, not to mention, it's just a better quality of life, right? Like Saudi was obviously a different culture. There wasn't as many opportunities, obviously same in the Philippines. So that was their dream. My dad just wanted to provide a better lifestyle for the family. So that's why we all came here.
And how do you make that happen? If you were so very poor, like, what was it, work? Like how did that what was that story? What was that transition like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I didn't grow up with my dad. I would see him like 1 month in the year because we were raised in the Philippines while he was working overseas in Saudi, right? Like trying to, make ends meet. He worked he worked for an oil and gas company and, he made good money and stuff, but then like he was, like rising up in the ranks. So it took him a while to save up and for us to be a little bit more well off. And that's when he immigrated the family from the Philippines to Saudi. And that's when our lifestyle improved. And obviously as human beings, we always want more. So that's when he immigrated us from Saudi Arabia to Canada.
Okay. And still in the oil and gas type thing. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you are socially inept. You are shy. I'm taking it as well, right? What I read on your bio, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. When did you start to, what made that like little shift happen? And not like the big shift, like not the whole thing, but what made you be like, okay, that over there, maybe?
That's a great question. So, like being an immigrant and not knowing how to assimilate, not speaking English or whatever, I worked a lot of low paying jobs. My first job was at Subway, then I worked at McDonald's. And if you know anything about Filipinos, like we're kind of stereotyped as like the Mexicans of Canada. So we did a lot of, it's true. I mean, I'm not even going to deny it, right? Like you go to a McDonald's here, you go to a, like any fast food chain, you'll see a lot of Filipinos in the back.
Why is that?
And I feel like, Filipinos have this very hospitable mentality. Like they want to serve, they want to give, and I think, like if you want to immigrate here, like it's much better. You have better chances of getting to Canada if you have a job. And most fast food restaurants are always looking for, people to work there and stuff. Right. Okay. And I think it's just like the pre-established stereotype. So like you'll see a lot of Filipinos work those jobs, and I was one of them. And then one day I was just like, this sucks, like this isn't the lifestyle that I had seen for myself. And I also saw other immigrants, like other Asians and other Indians who were doing like really cool things. And I'm like, well, what do they have that I don't? So that's kind of what sparked my curiosity. And I started kind of learning more about what they were doing differently. And I knew immediately that they were very socially confident, right? They knew a lot of people, they were charismatic, they were personable, right? They were great storytellers. They always had a lot of people around them. And that's what made me curious to learn more about that.
How old were you?
I was about 17 when I had that desire to improve and work on this part of my life.
So what did you do?
So good old Google, went on Google, typed in like how to be more social, how to meet girls, so to speak. And also back in high school, I noticed that all the girls that I had crushes on were like, gravitating towards the social charming guys. And I'm like, I gotta figure this out.
Power of the pussy, bro. The power of the pussy. Look, it happened for me too. That's how mine went. I was this fat, overweight kid, kind of not like whatever. And then, man, this girl hooked up with me at a party. And like, we barely did anything, but it was the first time a girl showed any interest in me, and she was hot.
Totally.
And I was like, yo, hold on, let's do some work.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because, on that same note, again, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, I used to be overweight. My first journey to personal development was actually getting in shape. I started, like just reading Men's Health and like learning more about health and fitness and weight training and tracking my food. So I actually lost, quite a bit of weight before I turned 19. So like 17 to 19, like while I was going to the gym, I was also reading books, right, on how to be more social and how to be more charismatic and stuff.
And how old are you now?
I'll be 35 this year.
Okay. So you're 4 years younger than me. So 5
nice.
years. So I'm going to be 40 this year.
Oh, wow. You look great.
Yeah. The big 4-0.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're reading these books, you're working out, it's still so hard to implement, right? I mean, are you an introvert by nature, or were you an introvert by circumstance?
That's a great question. So, for anyone listening, I just want to be clear, like introversion is a personality, and most people confuse introversion with shyness, right? Like shyness is basically, a fear of interacting with other people because you're so concerned of their opinions of them. Right. Introversion is how you recharge, like you get drained when you talk to too many people. And because of introverts' reserved demeanor, most people often confuse both. But to answer your question, I'm an extrovert by nature, and you're right. Like I became more, I became secluded, not by choice. I wanted to go out. It's just, I didn't know how, or I didn't have anybody to go out with.
Yeah. By circumstance.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, that's a big thing because I'm an extrovert too. And for the first 18 years of my life, I look like an introvert because like the same thing, but I recharge with people, and that's such a great distinction just so that everyone can really understand that extroverts I can't be around people all the time. I do need my own personal space sometimes. I'm sure we all do. But I can do the people thing for a long fucking time. Where like my buddy Ian, he's got like 2 hours.
Yeah. Totally agree.
I'm out, and he wants to be out. It's not like he's being pushed out. So that's the difference, extrovert and introvert. So how did you, but you have all of this experience, I would say, at what would look like introversion or shyness. How did you get yourself to come out of the shell?
Great. So at that point, I actually ended up getting a part. So I worked for an engineering company. I was a structural designer on and off for 7 years. So again, following the checklist, right? With my parents' wishes, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. And it did happen. And they weren't kidding. I did make good money. But then it was just boring. After 6 months, the novelty of the job, of, the big boy job, so to speak, wore off. So I got offered a job to bartend at a nightclub. So I was like, wow, this is cool. And at that point I was already like in shape. So it's like, I was getting attention. I was finally getting noticed.
Bro, are you sure your name's not Elliot? Are you fucking sure?
Pretty sure. And I didn't know what to do with all this newfound attention, right? And then I actually discovered a local dating company. There are a couple of dating coaches, and I saw them at this club that I was working at. And I'm like, who are these guys? Like, they're always here. They're always with dudes. And then I discovered that they were dating coaches. And I'm just like, wow, this is so cool. Like, because I've been reading about this, right? So like, how do I get involved? So long story short, they took me on as an intern. And then later on, I became one of their instructors. And then I had an opportunity to intern for one of the biggest dating companies in the US back in the day. And that opened up my network. So yeah, it's a combination of in-field experience and also mentorship from other people as well. That's how I got started.
What was the dating company?
In Calgary or in the US, or both?
Both, sure.
So the company doesn't exist anymore. It's called Kingpin Social. This was back in Calgary. And then I interned for Love Systems in the US back in the day.
And is Love Systems still around, or?
I'm not really sure. Like, there's been a shift in the industry, just because of, the whole feminist movement, Me Too movement, the apps, like that kind of stuff. There's been a big shift happening. So I'm not really sure what they're up to these days.
What does Me Too have to do with it? Why can't you date and be on me and still be like not a dick?
I think it's fear mongering, right? Like I think all these women who and for very valid reasons, who were like, verbally or physically or emotionally abused by men in public, that kind of stuff. The whole Me Too movement started for all of them to speak up. And I think which is awesome. I think it brought a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Transparency into what's happening. But then a lot of people mistook that. And now they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to girls in public anymore because I don't want to cause any ruckus.
I do. So I've talked to some of my friends about this. It's like, because I have a female friend and she's old and she's like, man, guys won't come up to me and talk to me. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, so I think there's so many things going on. One, I think I don't like, I like to say the testification, not the pussification, because our testicles are actually very weak. If you flick my testicle, I get on the ground and cry, and they push babies out of theirs. So,
fair enough.
So I like to say that it's the testification of the American male, one, and two, you're scared. You don't want to be accused of some shit.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming your companies though, they weren't teaching dudes to say dumb shit, right? I mean, you got to open up with something, but it's not you shouldn't be being accused for Me Too by starting a conversation, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the fear that just, people have these days. Like they're just so afraid of what other people might think and stuff. And also with the types of guys that I work with, I work with a lot of engineers, programmers, and developers with their social skills. A lot of them have the same experience and upbringing that I did. They're very socially inexperienced, right? So they just don't know what they don't know.
Right. You're Hitch. Yeah. You're Will Smith in Hitch, right?
You know what's funny? I actually interviewed on my podcast the guy who Hitch was based out of.
Really?
He's an interesting dude. Yeah.
Okay, tell me, what's your podcast? Obviously it's around your business. Yes.
Say it again.
Your podcast is around your business?
Yes, exactly. I interview other social dynamics experts. So, different, on many different topics, right? We cover everything from like dating to making friends to leadership at work, basically anything that has to do with social skills development.
So you're doing all this work.
Yeah.
Right? And how do you turn this into like a business? Because I mean, shit's hard. It's like, no, who's doing it? No, it's not like there's a huge blueprint. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there was a huge blueprint, but like, so how did you go from, wanting to have more social skills to being like, yo, I'm going to show, because you're so right. Like, engineers, developers, programmers, they're fucking dorks. Right?
they're socially inexperienced.
Right. But I get it. Yeah. It's okay. I am too. I'm a dork.
Yeah.
And taking some, dorks and socially inexperienced, if you want to keep it PC, how did you start a business?
Yeah. So to me, I mean, like a business basically is just an entity that solves a problem for a specific group of people, right? In exchange for money, obviously. So I just saw a gap in the market, like me being a structural designer. So like having experience in that industry and knowing that this is a need that most people are looking for. So I decided to just step up and fill the gap and create my own curriculum. I taught this in person. I've been around for 7 years on my own. I taught the program in person for 3 years before I moved everything online, so I can serve a wider audience and have a more global reach.
Okay. What is that? What did in person look like at first?
So we cover, like the basics from mindset. So like understanding, like where your limiting beliefs come from and overcoming that. Actually, we start off with like goal setting first, because I think most guys just don't know what they're looking for. Like they're going out blindly, right? Like they're going to bars, they're going to clubs, and there's nothing wrong with those places. It's just that maybe for some people that's not the best for them, right? So without knowing the kind of people you're looking for.
I feel you, bro. I can't dance. So like going to a club,
yeah.
I'm fucked. It's loud music. Like I do this talking thing decently. So loud music where I got to dance, I'm fucked. I never picked up a girl ever. A girl never even looked at me in a club.
Exactly. So yeah, we start off with goal setting first. Like we figure out like what kind of friends do you want to make, what kind of girls do you want to date. Then afterwards we walk them through like a process to untangle their limiting beliefs. Then we work on their first impression. So I took the guy shopping, we worked on their body language, and then I helped them put together their stories. Because as you know, like the same topics come up over and over again anyway, but most of these guys, they've never taken the time to answer some of the most commonly questions that they get asked, like, what do you do for work? What do you do for fun? Where are you from? Like all these things can be easily answered ahead of time in a very engaging way if they prepare for it. And then I help them design their social life. Like this is where you go to meet these kinds of people. And then we just track everything.
All right, take me through it. I'm your client.
Okay. Where do you want to, like, do we start from the very beginning?
Start from the very beginning. I want to find somebody.
Great. So Elliot, the first thing that I'm going to ask you is what kind of person are you looking for? Like what kind of girl do you want to date? What kind of friends do you want to make?
I like, what kind of girl do I want to date? God, I haven't thought about this for 20 years. I've been married for 20 years.
We better tell your wife, this is all hypothetical.
Yeah, she's good, man. She's good. Yeah. What kind of girl do I want to date? I want to date a girl that like has her own, is independent, is smart.
Sure.
Obviously she's got to be, I would like her to be, physically attractive.
Great.
Likes to work out. Likes food. I'm a foodie, and likes coffee.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Perfect. And now the next question that I want to ask you is, if this girl sees you right now, do you think she would feel the same way about you? If not, and if yes, awesome. And if not, what do you need to do at this point to like make it win-win for both of you?
Well, I guess I'm a little on the shy side, right? Like
okay.
I don't talk very well. So like,
okay.
I guess one of my biggest problems is if you ask me a question, I just give you the answer and it doesn't continue the conversation.
Got it. So you got to work on your conversation skills, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. And as far as like, being in shape, like how do you feel about your current physical, like fitness right now? Do you feel like it's something you need to work on, or do you feel like you're pretty confident about it?
It's okay. Yeah. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a Greek god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work out every day. So
Great, great. So basically the point that I'm trying to make is that, like we want to make it win-win for both of you, because a lot of guys have this sense of, they're asking for all these things, but they don't have the same qualities, right? So I think, it's good to work on yourself to specifically with, like things that you feel like you can bring better to the table, so that you don't feel like you're not good enough, right? When you meet this person. Does that make sense?
that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so like what if somebody says to you, I'm going to cut the talk for a sec.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool.
If somebody says to you that, like, yeah, I'm not really in the best shape, but they do want to meet someone that's in shape. Like, how does that like, how do you nicely walk them through and not like call them a fat fuck?
Well, I say like, well, if you meet, let's pretend you're this girl, like what kind of guy would she be looking for? And then they obviously like name the traits. And I ask them like, do you have those traits? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, do you think it's a good idea to develop those traits? And they're like, yes. So I think you just ask questions and you let them come up with the answer.
Right. But so it's not like I don't know that already. Mm-hmm. Right. It's not like, if I'm 50 pounds overweight and I want to, and I want J-Lo to come hang out with me. Like,
sure.
It's not like, I mean, when I go look at all the guys that J-Lo's dated, like they're beautiful and rich.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like I don't know this. So how do you get them to take action to those steps when it's already kind of obvious?
Yeah, there's many analogies, and I think a lot of people are very aware of what they need to do. But to me, like there's something that happens when they actually invest in this part of their lives. And then the other analogy that I always give would be like the type of job that they have. So let's say they're a software engineer, they make 150 grand, and I say like, do you think you would have gotten this job if you don't have the education that you have? They're like, no. Like obviously I had to go to school to get educated. So what would happen if you apply for this job without your education? They would not hire him. So I said like, well, how is this different than dating or making friends? Like you need to have the traits, right? Yeah. You need to have the traits that these people would be looking for. Like you can't just feel entitled to have friends and girlfriends if you're not, a high value person.
That's so good. What kind of job do you want? I want this job. I want to be in finance. All right. Well, then you got to go get a fucking finance degree.
Exactly.
Right. What kind of people do you want to hang out with? I want to hang out with those kind of people. Well, man, if you want to hang out with rock climbers, you better learn how to fucking rock climb, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. Yeah,
it's a great way to go about it. Okay, so what's the next step of the process? So you find out what it is they like and what it is they want, and then what do you do next?
Then we go over their limiting beliefs. Like I always ask them, like, what are the negative stories that you tell yourself that's holding you back from taking action, from putting yourself out there, whether it's attracting a partner or making friends. And then they, come up with all these lists, right? Like, I'm not good enough. I'm too short. Like I'm an immigrant. I'm not attractive, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I just walk them through a process that I've used for myself to be able to question these beliefs and reframe them into something more supportive and empowering. And then I get them into, doing like a mindfulness practice where they meditate, because a lot of them are overthinkers. And then I get them to come up with a list of things that they like about themselves, right? Because most guys are so focused on what's wrong about them, but then they've never taken the time to come up with things that they like about themselves. And as you know, you get exactly what you focus on. Mm-hmm. So if you keep focusing on your flaws, which we all have, right, you're going to feel like shit. But if you take the time to consciously focus on your positive traits and take action towards becoming a better person, then you can't help but feel more confident, right?
So yeah, 100% for sure. So are you yourself into meditation and all that stuff too? I heard you mention it a second ago.
100%. Yeah. It's something that's, that I do every day still. I've been doing it for over a decade, and it's changed my life, and I'm a big advocate of it. And it's something that I definitely preach to my clients that they should do as well. What
kind of meditation?
I just do a guided meditation. I have an app on my phone. I just like pop in, my AirPods and listen to it in the morning. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And then I do gratitude in the morning, and I do a lot of journaling, like whenever I overthink something, I'm usually pretty aware of my emotions. So if I'm feeling overwhelmed or negative, I just pause, I'll grab my notebook and just like write things out.
I have to do a better job of journaling and get it out of my head, because like I do all of the other stuff. I do the meditation. I have good gratitude. I exercise, but sometimes, I can run a loop in my head. And for
Totally.
sure, the journaling helps you. God, it sucks sometimes. I don't know if you've ever done this, but like I have. So I experience really intense anxiety from time to time, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes when I write the bullshit that I'm telling myself out, and if I write it out to its logical conclusion, and even if that conclusion's like suicide, you know, and I'm not saying I'm suicidal, right? I'm not like, so don't go there. But like, you know, everyone has a breaking point.
Yeah.
Right. So if I write it all the way out through the breaking point, it tends to subside.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a very good exercise to do.
And so the journaling you do is just more to explain it to me.
I just talk about like, this is what I want my life to look. I got this idea from a book. It's kind of woo-woo, but that's where I got the idea from. I dated someone who was a Reiki practitioner, and she introduced me to this book called Asking That Is Given. And there's a section in the back where they talk about this exercise called scripting. So you just script out like what your ideal body looks like, your ideal day looks like, ideal job, ideal financial situation, ideal relationship. So I just condition my mind to think of what I want rather than what's wrong with my situation.
Got you. That's the positive.
Exactly.
So I'm a coach. I have fighters, and coaching in the negative never works.
Exactly.
Telling someone don't do this.
Yes.
Right. Like, because then they just stop doing everything. Right. Yeah. They're just like, oh, don't. Okay. So I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't do that. I'm just going to fucking stand here. And then you get the shit kicked out of you. Right. So you have to tell them what to do. So you're
exactly
the same thing here. You're coaching in the positive.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, so that's all the mindset stuff. And then we get more into their presentation because, as you know, you never get a second chance to make a great first impression. People have decided whether they like you or not in a matter of seconds. So making sure that, you know, as basic as it sounds, like make sure you're smiling, you're making eye contact, you're not crossing your arms, right? You're keeping your arms to your side, you're standing up straight, you're wearing clothes that fit, that are flattering, you know, it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to fit your body and communicate the right message to other people, right? If you want people to take you seriously, then you have to look like it, right? You know, the message you want to send out has to match the clothes that you wear. So that's the second thing after the mindset.
It kind of helps you fake it till you make it a little bit too.
Yeah, you know, like, and it's to me, like, you know, like there's really no quick fix, right? You know, getting in shape takes time, conditioning your mind takes time, practicing your conversation skills take time. But there is one quick fix, which is your fashion. You can change how you look and how you feel about yourself, like literally in a matter of hours and for a few $100s, right? Quick trip to the mall, get a good haircut, get clothes that fit, boom, you instantly look more attractive.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, cool. No, I mean, like, and I totally understand what you mean because, like, in the fighter life, you walk around like a bum a lot, you know, because you're tired, right? Yeah. Especially when you're going from practice to practice, and sometimes you'll be like at the store or something, like grabbing a quick bite to eat, and you talk to somebody, and they look at you, and they're like, "No, don't talk to," because you're like, "Why was that person like that?" And then you're like, "Oh shit, it's because I look like a fucking idiot," you know?
Yeah.
So what is so then after that, so you've got
mindset,
first impression. What's next?
Storytelling. So answering, you know, I tell my students that there's only 5 topics that most people talk about. So their work and career, their family and their upbringing, their passions and ambitions, their what's the other one? What they do so hobbies and interests. And then the other one is events and places they've been to. So we just put together like, hey, so what are some interesting things that you've done as far as travel is concerned? Like, what do you do for fun? What do you like about your work? Because most people just give one-word answers. What do you do? I'm a software engineer. Well, great. Well, that gives me a lot to work with.
Exactly. That's fucking awful for, you know? Yes.
But they don't know any better, right?
Right.
Yeah. Do you like this? Yes.
Yes.
Oh, well, okay. So I teach them to, you know, again, just like the format of a good story, like there's a beginning, middle, end, and I teach them how to tell their story in a more descriptive way. So talking about how they felt, what they saw, what they heard, that kind of stuff. It makes their story more dynamic. And I teach them how to relate with people, right? Like how to pick up cues, like, oh, this is the topic that this person is interested in talking about. And this is how you relate, topic logically and emotionally. And they do this as a writing exercise, right? So it's kind of like writing an exam. Like when you're studying for an exam, you just have to study your stories. So by the time you go out, you remember things better and you don't run out of things to say because you're prepared, right?
Right. Listening is such a hard part. I know that's been something that I've had to work on with podcasting.
Yeah.
Right? Is sometimes I want to tell my own story all the time.
Totally.
How do you teach them how to listen to the, let's call it the guest?
Sure. Yeah. So just pausing for an extra second or two usually helps, like waiting for the other person to finish their words, no matter how excited you are. So pausing for like a second or two. The other thing as well is when you've prepared your stories, you tend to I noticed that from my experience, at least, and from my students, they tend to worry less because they're prepared, right? Like they're competent. That's why they're feeling confident and they're more relaxed because they know how to answer some of the most commonly asked questions. And they've also prepared their stories and how to relate to people. So at that point, they can just relax and allow things to be. Makes
sense. So I guess what does a typical day look like for you? Like what is, on the business end or the personal end of running this business?
Sure. Before I answer that question, I just want to put that final point.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I knew it was a long answer, but I just want to, because I want to make sure that whoever listens to it, the whole thing makes sense.
Yeah.
So far we talked about goal setting, mindset, first impression, storytelling. And then at that point, we come full circle. We figure out I teach my students to, work backwards. Like if you want to meet people who are fit, then how can you add a social component to your fitness hobby, right? So for example, instead of just working out by yourself, which is fine, maybe you should join some sort of fitness related boot camp, whether it's CrossFit or signing up for boxing, going to a hiking meetup so that you're, instead of doing cardio on your own, why not sub in a solo cardio session for a hiking meetup, right? Where you get to meet other people who are into hiking and you can meet people while you're getting in shape, right? So finding the overlap between your hobbies and interests and meeting people, I find that it's an easier way to connect with people than I'm going to go to a club where I don't know anybody here and it's so loud and I can't talk to people and I don't have a lot of experience. I'm sure when you train your fighters, you get them to start small before you go for harder exercises, right? So the same thing with this, you want to start small first, gain some confidence, gain some positive reference experience, and then go to the more challenging stuff later on.
Do you know anybody that the club thing works for them?
Yeah, there's a few people that I know for sure. And bless their soul. And it's worked for me too, to some capacity. At this point, to be honest, Elliot, it just doesn't fit my lifestyle anymore. I go to bed at 8:30. I know that sounds funny, but
nah, man, I got 2 kids. I'm in bed by 8:30 too. I might be watching Netflix, but I'm in bed by 8:30, bro. Narcos right now. Yo, Narcos is fire. Mexico.
Yeah.
So The Outsiders on HBO. Fuck.
I love it. I started my hangouts with friends at 5. We're done at 7:30. Then I go home. So you feel me, right? You understand,
bro. Give me a break. I don't even want to have sex too late because then that I'm up too late.
Exactly.
Are you married? Funny. Kids? Anything?
I live with my girlfriend. And initially, she thought I was joking that I go to bed at 8:30, and then when we moved in, she's like, "You weren't kidding. You do go to bed at 8:30." So, so yeah, it's like a diet, right? If you love carbs, don't do keto. If you like having smaller meals, then don't do intermittent fasting. It has to work for you and your preference. So the same thing with socializing. If you like certain things, instead of resisting it, go with it. Just add a social component to it.
That's a great point. I like, man, you have a lot of little tricks in there. Like the thing where you were talking about the job, how you relate the job, get the skills for the job, get the skills for the personal life. And then it's like a diet. Look, if you like pasta too much, you're right. Keto's not working.
Exactly.
The keto diet will work. You just won't do it. You'll do it for a minute. You'll do it for a minute.
Totally. And the name of the game, as you know, is sustainability, right? Like it's got to be something that you're able to sustain for the long run because, you know, I'm sure, I don't know how you feel about the word diet, but I don't like the word diet. I like the word lifestyle. Yeah. You know, it has to fit your lifestyle. So like whatever is, if it doesn't fit your lifestyle, then you're not going to do it long term. So the same thing goes with socializing. It's got to fit your lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure. And plus I hate the word diet because I used to have to diet all the time. When I fought, I used to have to lose 30 pounds.
Yeah. There you go.
I had to go, and like my fighters, we all like go on these massive diets to lose this weight. And and like I mean, afterwards we hate it. Like I can't go on a diet to save my fucking life right now.
Yeah, exactly. But then to answer your other question about a typical day for me, before I answer that, I just want to recommend a book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's an excellent book that's really helped me dial in my, increase my productivity. So one thing that I learned from that book is that I tend to do the same things at the same time, more or less on a daily basis. Like I wake up at the same time, I go to the same coffee shop, I sit in the same chair, I write at the same time, I go to the gym at the same time, you know, like, so there's no friction. That's why it's so easy for me to transition from one task to the other because I let my habits take over. Right. So yeah, I wake up early. I write first thing. I go to the gym at 10:30. I have lunch. I do intermittent fasting just because it's more convenient. I have lunch at the same time. I take all my calls after lunch, and then I'm normally done work at 6, and then afterwards I just chill with my girlfriend, see my friends. You know, I do all my social activities at after 6. So my life is like it's well rounded, but it's compartmentalized. Like I don't see friends in the morning, and I don't work in the evening. Right.
Got you. So you'll like, what time is it in Calgary right now?
It's 2:42 p.m.
Okay. So same time as Colorado. So what time?
Mountain time.
Mountain time. Right. So you will, after this podcast, we'll be done here in what, 15 minutes or so, 10 minutes, somewhere in there.
You tell me, you're the host.
Yeah. So after you're done, like, do you have more work to do? Like, so what does that like look like? What is this midday? Because this is like,
Sure.
So it's hard to consider this work, but it's work, you know?
Well, I do treat my business like a job, you know? So like, I don't call myself the CEO. I find that a little bit pretentious. I consider myself an employee in my company. So to me, like there's a certain, level of there's a certain number of tasks that need to get done. So like I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, I run the social media, I take the sales calls, I do the group calls for the students. So every week, like a video has to go out, a podcast episode has to go out. So like I've basically broken down everything that I need to do on a list of daily tasks. So I just look at the day. I'm like, okay, if it's Monday, then I have to do these tasks. If it's Tuesday, I have to do these things, right? So at that point, like I don't feel overwhelmed because I've broken down what I need to do on a daily basis, kind of like fitness, right? Like if you're like, oh, I need to cut, so I need to eat these many calories, I need to break them down into these types of macros, and I only eat 2 to 3 times a day, so I got to break them down into these meals. You're only focused on like the one day at a time, right? You get your reps in, you get your diet in, and you're only tracking it one day at a time. So that's how I tackle my business too. Got it.
Do you have employees?
I have contractors.
Okay. So like coaches.
So just part-time no, I do all the I do group coaching. So like all the students show up at the same time once a week, but I do have people helping me with just like menial tasks like editing. Editing is a big thing that I just outsource. Yeah.
Okay. So sure. You have independent contractors that complete a task.
Yes.
Nobody that's like working on the business every day like you are.
No, my business is very lean at this point.
Gotcha.
Small but mighty. Yeah.
Small but mighty. And how long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it full time for 7 years, but overall I've been in this space now for about 16 years. So I've been learning the social skills and also running the business for 16 years.
When you say the social skills, like your own personal social skills, or like the social skills as in social media?
Social skills as in communication skills, as in my own.
Your own personal. Yeah. Got it. Okay. And last kind of question that might lead to some more questions. I don't know, but last kind of topic here. You and I aren't in the same space at all, I guess, other than podcasting, right?
Sure.
So we podcast. When my people reached out to you, why say yes? You know, I'm not Tim Ferriss. I'm not Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Just the way they approached me, you know, like they were there, like when you get into the online marketing space, like you'll see a lot of cookie cutter templates. So like I do like the way they approach me was very personalized. I don't really watch a lot of TV in general, so I'm not familiar with like MMA or whatever. But my brother and my best friend, they're both fans. So to me, like I've always had a positive association with MMA and like, you know, UFC stuff like that. I've watched a couple fights as well. They were very entertaining, and I also know the level of dedication and work that it takes to get to that level, just because my best friend talks about it a lot. So I automatically had a level of respect towards you, knowing that that was your background. So I knew that like this was something that you take seriously and professionally. This is not like, you know, like a flash in the pan, like you'll be gone next month type of thing. So that's why I agreed.
All right, cool. I just like to know, you know, like, and I think that's the hardest thing with podcasting, right? It's just to stay consistent with it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
given
like,
your background, I assume you're someone who's very professional and consistent. That's why I agreed.
Yeah, man. And this isn't my like main gig. So, but what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought for a second. Oh, but the podcasting space, right? Because it's consistency, right? Yeah. It's just consistency. You're not becoming Rogan overnight. You're not becoming Tim Ferriss overnight. And man, I just actually met with, the guy who grew Tim Ferriss's podcast from 900,000 downloads a month to 14 million a month. And he was like, that dude is constantly mad that he doesn't have Rogan's numbers. It's like, dude, you have 14 million fucking downloads a month. Chill out. Right? Like, well, I mean, if you had 14 million a month, what would you do? Like, insane, right?
Well, you know, like it's funny because I just got back from Atlanta. I spoke at an event called Menfluential. And this is basically like a men's lifestyle event where some of the most successful YouTubers, Instagrammers all hang out. And then when you're exposed to those types of environment, like this, like some people there make like millions a year in their 30s from their YouTube channel, right?
Sure.
You know, like even though like, let's say like you make 6 figures, which is, you know, a great living, you know, only 10% of what people in North America make 6 figures. When you're exposed to people who make millions of dollars, your perception gets skewed, right? So you're like, and then in comparison, you feel like shit. But then if you don't look at your situation overall, you're like, actually, I'm doing pretty well, you know?
Sure. What you just said there, menfluential. Sometimes like along with the Me Too movement, like we talked about, a little earlier, God, that can get so much hate sometimes, right? Like you know, like menfluential. What, you're trying to boost men up? Like, don't we have enough?
It's funny because there's actually not as many events for men. There's a lot for women. So there's very few events that are, you know, geared towards men around self-development. So it was a big conference. There were like 500 people and people from like all over like the world. Like I met a kid who flew in from India, saved his rupees for a year to afford the ticket to come to this event. It was crazy. Dude,
I think personally that the biggest problem we have is a male problem. Like we have men walking around that are so unaware of who they are, but they try to scream who they are. It's insane to me, in my opinion. Like we do not have really strong males right now.
Yeah, no, I agree, Elliot. You know, I think if more, not just men, but people in general spend more time just away from technology and spend more time alone with their thoughts and really like get to know themselves, I feel like we would have, you know, a more harmonious situation, in my opinion.
And I think we have to do physically hard things. Like genetically, that's in us. Yeah. That's our DNA. We were like the women stayed home and the men went out and caught the bears or whatever they ate, right? The women raised the children. And I'm not saying that the women need to go raise the fucking children again. Please don't anybody take it that way. You're right. Like, but you know, like there is something too on the male side of that. We are physical and that does something for us. We have a lot of testosterone and you have to use it. And if you don't fucking use it in a positive way, then you're blowing it, you know, you're blowing it. I'm not saying everyone's got to fight, but do physically hard things.
I agree for sure. It's a very masculine trait to be able to overcome something, you know, that feeling of like setting a goal and actually persisting and overcoming it. You know, to me, like it's not even reaching the goal itself. It's the whole process, right? Of overcoming hard stuff, you know, very similar to what you said.
You don't have to be, you don't even have to win. Dude, I'm a fucking failure. I'm a full-time failure. Right? Like I just put a video out about this. My goal was to be a world champion. Never got it. Never got it. Who cares? It was such an amazing journey, right? The journey of difficulty is what truly makes us.
It's funny you mentioned that because I feel like it's very similar to what I do. You know, like it's never about like getting the girlfriend or, you know, it's about the process of just overcoming your fear, you know, like, you know, being the kind of person who acts in alignment with what you want. So like, let's say you see an attractive person you want to talk to, you know, just the fact that you made a move, it doesn't matter whether they said yes or no. The fact that you took control and you did something to act on your desire, you know, like that alone is very rewarding regardless of what happens.
And then just take information from it. Yeah. Right? Like, okay, you want to get the girl and she like looked at you and laughed and walked the other way. Don't be like, oh, I suck. I'm fat. I'm ugly. Right? Because I mean, I think you and I have both been there where we've gone down that road where it's like, okay, what feedback did I get?
Yeah.
Right? What feedback? Oh, she's okay, maybe I could fix this. And then just go try and fix that one thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think sometimes, and you tell me if in your area, everyone, you try to fix everything right away and then you fix nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And then,
I agree.
You know, but fix one thing at a time. When you get that handled, move on to the next.
Yeah. So I call that just in time learning. So whatever you need to learn at that point, just focus on that. So for example, like let's say you're having issues just walking up to strangers. You don't have any business learning how to be witty or how to banter. If you can't even start the conversation, don't worry about being funny. Like just overcome that. And then we'll get into some small talk, then some deeper conversations. Then we'll get into the bantering stuff. You know, sometimes people learn the right things in the wrong order, which still makes it the wrong thing, right? Like your ability to pick your priority, in my opinion, is the number one reason why most people would prevent feeling overwhelmed and actually get things done, right? To be able to pick the right thing in the right order.
Okay. I didn't understand, but now I understand. You can't, like, I couldn't start our conversation talking shit. We don't know each other, right? Like you gotta ease into that, right? Like you know, so you can't try to have banter. Hey man, how do you want to be introduced? All right, cool. Great. Where are you, in Calgary? Oh, amazing. Right? You have to have this like smooth working out process or meeting process in everything that you're doing, right? Yeah. You're not going to be a professional at something that right when you start, you suck. We all suck. Be good with it.
Yeah, and I actually got that idea from the fitness world. You know, they always talk about, you know, gradual progressive overload, right? You know, you want to be doing an extra rep or an extra 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever, every single week, right? You know, I feel like that applies with social skills too. You know, just like start where you're at, get good at that, and then, you know, gradually, that's the key word. You got to gradually progress, or else, you know, in the gym, if you slap on an extra 45-pound plate, you're going to get injured. Same thing in socializing. You're going to get socially injured.
We don't like that word gradually, bro. Right? People want to sign up for Instagram and have 100,000 followers, right?
Exactly.
People want $1 million 1 year into their business, right? Nobody likes that word gradual. That's part of the failure of the male problem a lot right now. Is like, it's work, man. This shit is work. Yeah. You know, it's everyday work.
We live in, you know, the instant gratification society too, right? Where everything can be bought with a credit card, and you can lease an expensive car so you can look rich without actually being rich. You know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's too bad, but you know, what do, right? You just got to go with it.
Right. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. We can talk about it, bring awareness to it. So it's, you know, so that people can start to think about it a little differently. You know,
exactly.
You know, yes, you're right. Don't get that 7% interest rate on a fly car that you're going to be paying off for 7 years. That's stupid.
Exactly.
Oh, that's just stupid. So, man, where can everyone find you? Social media, website, all that stuff, Myke.
Sure. Yeah. Everything is under Social Confidence Mastery. So if you go online, socialconfidencemastery.com. My podcast is Social Confidence Mastery on any podcasting platform. Social Confidence Mastery on Instagram and Facebook as well.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And
Elliot, I appreciate you too. Thanks for the great questions, man. I was very engaged with our conversation.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I tried. I was on with a social person, so I had to try to stay at the top of my game.
I give you a 9.5 out of 10.
All right, sure. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm gonna wrap it up here, and then we'll talk in a sec. So, okay, all right, guys. I appreciate everyone listening. If you like the podcast, go give it a subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Leave a review. You know how I'd like to do this. Positive, negative, don't care. Leave a review. That'd be amazing. Go check out my YouTube channel. And as always, guys, go out there and find your power, not somebody else's power. You have the power to be amazing in the world. Go ahead and try to be. That's it, guys. Thanks all.